the psychology of the oldest child. You've probably spent your whole life calling it personality, ambition, work ethic, drive. You've watched someone, maybe yourself, carry the weight of every room they walk into, fix every problem before anyone asks, stay impossibly composed while quietly falling apart, and you've thought, that's just who they are. It isn't. It's a wound dressed up in a resume. Picture this. Sometime in the late 1980s, a child is standing in a hospital corridor. Cold, speckled linoleum. A sharp antiseptic smell. Through a glass window, their mother is in a bed with something new. Something small and screaming and unbelievably consuming of every adult gaze in the room. The child watches. And without a single word being spoken to them, without anyone explaining anything, something in the architecture of who they are begins to rearrange itself. Quietly, permanently. That moment has a clinical name. Alfred Adler, the Austrian psychiatrist who first mapped birth order psychology in the 1920s, called it dethronement. Before that day, the firstborn was the entire universe of their parents' attention, 100% of the gaze, the worry, the pride. The arrival of a second child doesn't just divide that attention. To the firstborn's developing brain, it registers as catastrophic resource loss. And the brain, being the survival machine it is, immediately begins solving the problem. If I am perfectly useful, perfectly responsible, perfectly quiet about my own needs, they will not leave me behind. That is the original algorithm. Everything else is downstream. A 2007 study by Christensen and Bjørkdal, published in the journal Intelligence, analyzed Norwegian military data and found firstborns carry a measurable 3-point IQ advantage over secondborns. Economists, Black, Devereaux, and Salvanez confirmed the same gap using the entire Norwegian population and found it translates to roughly a 2% increase in adult annual earnings, with a 10% structural gap in lifetime achievement metrics between a firstborn and a fifthborn child. What this actually means is that the family gaze is a cognitive fertilizer. But here's what nobody tells you about growing a plant too fast under too much heat. Research synthesized by Denise and McEwen in 2012 found that children who take on caregiving roles before age 12 exhibit resting cortisol levels up to 30% higher than age-matched controls and face a 2.4 times greater likelihood of meeting the clinical criteria for severe anxiety disorders in adulthood. What this actually means is that the biological cost of becoming the responsible one is not metaphorical. It physically restructures the brain's stress response system. It shrinks the hippocampus. The firstborn doesn't just feel more anxious as an adult. Their nervous system is wired for it. And yet the external result of all this internal pressure is extraordinary. Frank Sulliway's 1996 work, Born to Rebel, documented firstborn's disproportionate alignment with authority and institutional achievement. 91% of the first 23 American astronauts were firstborns. Up to 79% of older cohort corporate CEOs are firstborns. Swedish administrative data shows firstborn men scoring 0.2 standard deviations higher on measures of emotional stability, persistence, and initiative than thirdborn siblings. They rise consistently across cultures, across centuries. But here is the paradox. They are simultaneously the most driven people in any room and the most exhausted by the driving. They lead naturally and privately wish someone else would take the wheel. They follow every rule while resenting the rule more than anyone. They caretake everyone around them with preternatural skill, and yet they are the ones least able to receive care when it's offered, processing it not as love but as a quiet threat to their identity. Both sides of every contradiction are the same strategy wearing different clothes. The achievement and the anxiety, the leadership and the resentment, the fierce independence and the secret loneliness. They all trace back to the same calculation made by a child in a hospital corridor. It's not that they're controlling. It's not that they're rigid or perfectionistic or constitutionally incapable of rest. It's that a child was handed adult-level stakes at an age when their brain was still learning object permanence, and every coping strategy they developed to survive that circumstance was then rewarded by parents, by teachers, by employers who love a person who never complains and always delivers. The system didn't break them. The system was built by people exactly like them, and the cost lives in the body. Black, Devereaux, and Salvanese's 2015 study found that despite their significant socioeconomic advantages, firstborns are statistically more likely to carry elevated blood pressure, higher triglyceride levels, and greater rates of obesity than their younger siblings. The person who can't take a vacation without checking their email isn't neurotic. They are soothing the same nervous system that learned, before they could articulate it, that stillness is dangerous. Think of the firstborn in your own life. The one who arrives 5 minutes early, takes on extra work before anyone asks, never lets you see them struggle. When did they learn that being fine was the rent they paid for being loved? The firstborn is a cathedral built on a hairline fracture, breathtaking from the outside, quietly bearing a load that most structures would have collapsed under long ago. The wound at the foundation doesn't make the cathedral less real. It makes the fact that it's still standing more remarkable than anyone standing inside it will ever allow themselves to believe. If something in this landed somewhere, it's lived for a long time. Share it with the oldest child in your life, or send it to yourself.